Hey guys, what is going on? This is Travis P11. I'd like to welcome you back to the channel, and today we're going to do a little cleaning of this Ruger American rifle. Now, this video is going to cover multiple chamberings, multiple different calibers, and so for the most part, unless you've got the ranch rifle, the process is going to be virtually identical across the board. Before we get started on this cleaning, let's go and talk about some of the supplies that you can use for the cleaning. Now, everybody has their own preferences of cleaners and tools and so on. These are just suggestions. You can get by with a little bit more or a little bit less whenever you clean off the rifle. First and foremost, to clean the rifle itself, I like to use cleanse oil. I've been using it for a couple months now on the channel. It works really good. It doesn't leave a super thick residue, and it does a great job of removing burnt carbon, powder, and so on, grease. So if you can, pick yourself up some cleanse oil field and range cleaner. It's a liquid, and you can use it with patches to wipe your parts down. Also, if you can get it, Safariland Break-Free CLP Cleaner, Lubricant, Preservative is a great cleaner that you can use. A lot of times people will watch my cleaning videos and they'll ask me the question, where do you buy this at? Where do you get it at? You can buy this at most of your sporting goods stores, your mom and pop gun stores, and like your local Walmart. Although with all the new gun owners out there, some of these cleaning supplies have been a little bit hard to find. Now, you can use an old toothbrush if you need to wipe off some dirt or grime, or I just use some cleaning brushes. This one is made by either Hoppe's or Allen. They're inexpensive. They just cost a couple bucks, and you can get them in the cleaning section at your local sporting goods store. I also like to use a one-piece cleaning rod for cleaning out the receiver. Now, again, this isn't necessary, but it makes it a little bit easier, especially if you have big fingers and you have trouble getting in some of these areas to get them clean. This works well because you can just take a patch in there and scrub around a little bit. Q-tips are nice to have. Cotton swabs come in really handy. I like to have a barrel light so I can check the bore when I get done to make sure it's nice and clean. I'm going to try something a little bit different to clean off the bolt face. Instead of putting a coat of oil on and wiping it off, I'm going to hit it with a microfiber lens wipe and then a dry Q-tip. This has just enough rubbing alcohol in it that it's not going to be harsh on the finish, but it's going to take off any grease or spent powder from the bolt face of the rifle, which starts to build up carbon and powder as you do your shooting. Now, I prefer to use a bore snake. This is a real avid bore snake. These cost about $8 or $9, I think, and they come in different calibers. This one's chambered for 762 millimeter 308/30 caliber. It just makes it a lot easier for cleaning the barrel, in my opinion. Some people argue that you don't necessarily get the deep clean that you normally get with a cleaning rod and a brush, and while I agree with you, this seems to get me by just fine, so that's what I use. Cotton patches or an old cut up cotton t-shirt works great for you for doing some of the cleaning. I like to use the patches, and I just buy the Allen patches. They're like maybe $6 or $7 for a bag. These are just 225 patches, 30 to 45 caliber. Now, to take the actual action out of the stock, which is not something you have to do all the time, but we're going to do in this video just to show you, because you can also use that procedure to adjust the trigger. We just have a normal, just a regular, just screwdriver tool, and you're going to need a 3/16 Allen wrench or Allen head in order to get the bolts out in order to separate the stock from the receiver. Now, if you want to use the traditional cleaning rod for cleaning the barrel, if you have a multi-segment cleaning rod or a one-piece cleaning rod, you're going to go from the rear to the front of the barrel. You're going to have your little bore brush on there. You're going to put that on, unscrew it, pull the rod out, run it through again, unscrew it, take it out. You don't ever want to pull that bore brush back into the barrel reverse, or at least that's what I've been told not to do. It's what I don't do. And that's one way you can do it. And then you just run some patches down on a jag or a patch holder down the barrel with some oil, and you can clean out the bore, or you can just do what I do, which is just use a bore snake a couple times, and we will show you that procedure in the video. Now, it isn't necessary, but it's nice to have for reassembly. Also, if you're installing any optics, I've got the Wheeler Fat wrench. It's the firearm accurizing torque wrench. These cost about $45, but it's money well spent, especially if you've ever stripped a screw before on anything. It's nice to have because you can set it for inch pounds of pressure, not foot pounds, not like a torque wrench for a car, but inch pounds, which will work with a lot smaller screws. So when we reassemble the action in the stock, we're gonna have to torque it to 60 to 80 inch pounds. I'm gonna start off with 60 and see if that works. And you're actually going to hear it click like a traditional torque wrench, so you don't have to worry about over torquing the screws and ruining the screw, the stock, the action, and so on. One last minute addition for the tools that you're going to need to pick up is one of these little socket extensions. You can use these with drills. You might even have it like like say you got a 100-piece tool set. There's a good chance that's going to be in there. This little guy right here is going to help you with your torque wrench get the screw all the way down without the screwdriver coming in contact with the trigger guard. So this is something I recommend. Unless you're just going to straight up use the screwdriver style wrench, then you can go that route too. But you're going to see what happens later in the video when I don't have this part. All right, so let's go ahead and get started with the first step. We always like to make sure that the firearm is in fact unloaded and that the magazine is out of the firearm. So we're going to go ahead and detach the magazine from the bottom. Press this little tab right here. Magazine's going to come out. Magazine is empty. Put that off to the side. By the way, if this gets out of focus at any point in the video, I do want to apologize. It's pretty bright in here and sometimes my camera does weird things, but anyway. All right, go ahead and open up the bolt, pull back on the bolt and feel inside the chamber. It is empty. All right, let's move on to the next step, which is removing the bolt, and we'll clean the bolt first. Now, we're not going to disassemble the bolt. I don't think it's necessary, in my opinion, to disassemble the bolt and clean it. I've got a Ruger Ranch rifle that I put a ton of rounds through, and I've never had issues with misfires or light primer strikes and so on. And the instruction manual doesn't show you how to disassemble the bolt, so we're not going to worry about it. I might do a standalone video later on that procedure for you to show you what you do. But for this one, we're just going to be cleaning the bolt off. It's kind of like a field strip, but you can do as much of the clean as you're comfortable doing or you think you need to do. Now, this rifle has not been fired yet, so we're going to give it a good little once over before we put it together and take it to the range for the first time. Now, to remove the bolt, there's a little lever right here that you're going to push, or a lever if you're a fan of Yankee Marshall, and go ahead and press that button while pulling it out, and whoo, and your bolt is going to come out. Okay, so let's go ahead and start off with the cleaning of the bolt. So the key here is to not over oil or over lubricate any of these components. What you don't want is a bunch of dust and grime and build up on these parts while you're out in the field, causing misfires or malfunctions and so on. Got literally 2 drops of oil on a patch. We're just going to wipe it off. Now, the nice thing about the cleanse oil, this is pretty much like kind of a one-stop shop. You just wipe this on, it's going to leave things clean and nice and lubricated. You know, you can always hit it with a second patch if you want to. Really not a big deal. You can take off this plastic sleeve. If you want to twist it off and pop it off, you can. I'm not going to do that. It's just not necessary for what we're doing today. So go ahead and just wipe off the lugs. Okay, go ahead and just quickly wipe off the bolt face, but don't really press very hard. You don't want to get oil into that hole where your firing pin is going to be located. Now I'm going to take this little microfiber lens cleaning cloth, which basically is going to dry out oil and residue. And since I've never cleaned this firearm before, other than just wiping it off on the outside, I'm going to take the little lens cleaning wipe, and I'm going to just go ahead and wipe off the bolt face. Let's give it a little scrub. I don't know if it's going to pull anything off there or not. We'll find out. And pull back. Looks decent. Looks pretty good. Granted, it has been test fired a couple times, so there's just a little bit of kind of some marks on the bolt face. Now go and take your dry Q-tip and just go and wipe off any remaining residue from that patch. You'll have a nice, dry, clean bolt face, which is what you want. Get underneath that extractor right there. Do a little bit of scrubbing. Okay, go and push that off to the side. It pulled off a little bit, but not much. Okay, that looks nice. Okay, we're going to go ahead and just set the bolt off to the side. We're done with that for now. All right, for the next step, we're going to clean out the receiver. Now, you got a lot of ways you could do this. You could take the stock apart from the receiver and then wipe it out that way if you want to, which we're going to do, but we want to do as much as we can without having to rest anything on the optic while the gun's sitting in the stand. So I'm just going to go and take my cleaning rod with a patch with a little bit of oil on it and just screw out the inside of the receiver. I'm going to go down to the throat where the ammo loads into the barrel. Okay, you can also take off that patch if you want to and just go from the magazine well and go ahead and wipe that out too. And you'll be amazed, even though the gun is brand new and never been fired by me, you know, the stuff that's going to come off on that patch, right? All right, now for the next step, we're going to clean the barrel. And so I'll be running my bore snake through the barrel. We'll go and back this up a little bit and you can see how this is going to work. I'm going to put just a couple drops of cleanse oil on my bore snake. Now, sometimes you'll have a bore snake that's going to have the bristles in the middle part with a swab in the front and a swab in the back, or a mop or cloth or whatever you want to call it. For this one, it's pretty simple. You just run this little tab from the rear to the front of the barrel and just push it till it comes out of the end of the barrel. There you go. By the way, you guys get a nice view of our apartment while we're doing this cleaning video. A little messy right now, doing some spring cleaning. And just go ahead and pull that through. Bore's nice and tight. Make sure you hold onto the barrel when you do so. So real quick, let me show that to you one more time. So this is what it looks like. The handle hooks onto the cable itself. Okay, it makes a nice little spot there, and then you can just pull it right through. So you do that on the end of the barrel once you push it through. Okay, I'm going to do this one more time, and then we will come back and move on to our next step. Okay, so for the next step, we need to remove the bolt that's in the front and the rear of the magazine well. We're going to be using this little 3/16 screwdriver that I have to do so. You can do it from the side if you want to, but make sure you hold on to the action, because the action and the stock are going to separate. The receiver and the stock are going to come apart. Some people might think it's just heresy and wrong to do this, but you can rest it like this. gently and then remove the 2 screws if you want to, which is what I'm actually going to do. Okay, so now once you've taken out those 2 bolts, you can simply pull the stock right off, and like I said, you might have a magazine well that's going to come out. Not a big deal, you can just put that back in. It's kind of interesting because you can see the little bedding system that they use in here to help ensure that the rifle has a free floated barrel where it doesn't touch any portion of the stock. And if the stock would ever happen to warp, you can always sand that down a little bit so it's not touching the barrel to bring it back to a more or less free floated position. So we're just going to wipe out these little mounts. You don't have to put any lubricant or anything like that down in the threads. Just go ahead and wipe it out with your patch. This will just help ensure that you get all that dirt and grime and assembly oil out of there. Okay. All right, so for this next step, just go ahead and wipe off the underside of the barrel. You can also wipe off the entire barrel at this point. Okay, make sure you wipe off the action. You're going to see a little bit of manufacturing and assembly grease in there. You can see that a little bit of grime does come off on it. We're going to wipe it off. Now in a second here, I'm going to show you how to adjust that trigger so that you can make the trigger tighter or lighter, or I'm sorry, harder to pull or lighter to pull. That's going to be up to you. But just give it a nice little coating all the way around. This will help ensure that you don't have any rust issues, especially if you shoot in a high humidity environment or an environment with a lot of moisture. Okay, you can also get in here and wipe out those parts that maybe you couldn't catch before with that little cleaning rod. Okay. All right, so to adjust the tension on the trigger, you've got this little Allen screw in the front. It's got a total of 6 screws of range to go from tightest to lightest. If you go clockwise, you're going to be increasing the amount of weight that it's going to take to pull the trigger, so it's going to be a harder trigger pull. If you go counterclockwise, it's going to make for a lighter, shorter trigger pull. And they recommend just doing like a half turn every single time and then testing the trigger and getting it to how you want it. So you'd have to test it with the action in it, obviously sitting out of the stock or putting it back in the stock, resting it in the stock, and cycling it until you get the trigger to pull exactly how you want to. So again, clockwise is going to make the trigger pull harder and counterclockwise is going to make it softer. I'm not going to be doing anything like that. I'm not going to make any changes because it's fine exactly as it is from the factory. All right, so it is time for reassembly. So I'm going to take my torque wrench here and I'm going to set it. It says 60 to 80 pounds. I think mine only goes up to, probably about 65 or so. So I'm going to get this cranked up all the way. Okay, just go ahead and wipe off your bolts with just a little drop of oil to make sure they're nice and clean so there's no residue on them before you put them back into place. Just go and give those a little clean off so they're good to go and ready to go back in. Here we go, okay. All right, replace your stock. Just go ahead and put your stock back on like you did before. Drop it back down here, it should fit perfectly. There we go. Okay, now we've also got that magazine well here that's gonna go back in too. So we're gonna put that back into place. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take my front bolt and just hand thread it in just to get it set. Okay, now I've just got that set to the point that the stock no longer flops out, and then we'll go ahead and put the rear bolt in let's give that a couple turns here until we start to feel that bite also. Now this torque wrench is maxed out at 60, so we're going to see just how far this is going to go. Okay, we'll go ahead and start turning it. Again, I'm not pressing down, I'm just turning to the side, I'm just rotating the screwdriver. Okay, we'll go to the back here. Okay, 1 second, I got to grab a part. All right, so a problem that I'm having right now is that the wrench is already starting to hit the trigger guard and it's not going to give me a chance to torque it properly, so I'm going to use this little bit extension. I'll go back in at the start of this video and mention this part. You're going to want one of these in order to be able to finish this off if you're going to use your torque wrench. All right, so again, I've got this set for 60 inch-pounds, and when we hear it click, we know that we've maxed out the screw at 60. Okay, it's just about done. There we go. It's going to pop one time. The wrench itself is going to physically click, make a clicking sound. I'm actually going to turn this on its side because I don't want to put any pressure on the optic. A little bit awkward. There we go. Okay. So if you want to, you can just press it from the side. The optic's not pressing anything. It's not sitting on the rail. It's just resting on the stock right now. So that's an option that you can go to if you want. Now go and take a look at the stock. Make sure that you don't have any plastic that's pushing on the barrel right now. None of the stock is touching. If I put a piece of paper underneath of it, it's going to be free floated all the way back to where the barrel meets the receiver. I'm just going to hand check it one time. Oh yeah, that's very tight. There's no movement of the screwdriver whatsoever. All right, let's go ahead and continue with the reassembly of the rifle. Okay, so go ahead and take your bolt. It's nice and clean. It's ready to go. I just gave it a little light coat of oil. We're going to put that back in. This will definitely smooth out as time goes on. Push that back in, okay? Go ahead and take your magazine. Now, I'm going to go ahead and just cycle a couple dummy rounds through this real quick just to make sure that it's going to run the way I want it to make sure that the trigger is going to click. Okay, so these are what we call dummy rounds or snap caps. These are not live ammunition, just so you know. We're gonna go ahead and load 2 of them and just cycle it through. These are chambered in .308 Winchester also, just like the regular ammo. Okay, we'll go ahead and put the magazine in. There we go. Okay, picked up both rounds with no problems. Now, if you didn't watch my introduction video on this gun, it's got a really rough inside of the receiver, and my ranch rifle was the same way. It's very loud. There's like a swirly pattern in here. All the ranch rifles are like that. They just don't put a lot of time into the finishing of the inside receiver. I'm not going to give you any suggestions for how to resolve that, but there are things you can do with some abrasive paste and so on that you can put in there and cycle it so many times it'll smooth it out. But that's just the nature of the gun. I know, it's terrible. And my ranch rifle, chambered in 7.62 by 39, was the exact same way, but eventually it does smooth out and it does stop making the noise. But on the line, you may not even notice it, especially if you got hearing protection on. The game you're stalking, on the other hand, it might notice it, especially if you have to do a follow-up shot or a second shot. So anyway, guys, that is the basic disassembly and reassembly of the Ruger Ranch rifle, chambered in .308 Winchester. I'm looking forward to taking it out. I think it's going to be a great rifle. Again, you want to be careful if you got the optic on the top. You don't want to press down at all when you're tightening those screws. If you want, you can put it on the side and put those screws in. You just got to make sure you hold everything together when you're in the process. That's pretty much whatever works best for you when you've got the gun disassembled and you're cleaning it. But in the meantime, guys, if you like what you see, please like and subscribe. Mash that subscribe button so you don't miss any new videos. And to check out my little podcast that we do called Caliber Corner. We've been doing it for 4 years now. It's a great little podcast that we do where we talk guns and ammo. And that's usually Saturday mornings at 8 a.m. Central Time, so make sure you do check it out. But in the meantime, got a lot of gun videos and range tests coming your way, especially this summer. So if you like what you see, like and subscribe. Have fun, be safe, guys. And as you know, we will talk to you soon. All right, take care. Bye-bye.